Okay, good afternoon, folks. Buenas tardes. We have a fun presentation today. A lot of good spirit out there, a lot of positive energy. That's it. I want to thank Councilman Huizar for joining me this afternoon. This is the Planning and Land Use Management Committee, Tuesday, May 15th. Have several items on the agenda. Let's run through the agenda and isolate those that we can move on and call the specials special. So, item 1 is special for cards. And I'm assuming 1 and 2 go together. Item 3 does have cards on it. And the ones that have submitted cards on 3 all seem to indicate support. And I can share with you that item 3 was going to be on consent. So that means that all of the wise people who know you have consent, do you really feel compelled to speak if you're already getting the consent? Yes. You do? And your name is? Oscar and Safi? So we'll call it special and we'll not call it consent because you want to speak, correct? All right. So we'll hold that on the calendar. You did indicate support though, right? Okay, we won't talk now, but okay, we'll hold it. So item 3 is special. Item 4, with the approval of council member, we can move that on consent and see no cards. Is that consent? On 4? No cards, that's on consent. Are you okay with that? On 5, item 5, we'll continue and plumb to September 18th. And hopefully in council, October 3rd. Item 6, seeing no cards, we will continue and plumb November 6th. Hopefully in council, November 21st. That will be the schedule for those 2 items. Okay. So we have quite a few cards on items 1 and 2 because we're going to put those together. And before we get started, let's just do a little bit of housekeeping. You can tell with the acoustics, it's hard to understand. So if you're carrying conversations back there or anywhere in this room, it makes it even harder. So if you need to have a conversation, please take it outside. When you come to the microphone, give us your name and address. Many of you have written eloquent letters. If you can just get to the point of your letter, because you have 2 minutes. So you come to the microphone, look to your right, there's a clock. You have 2 minutes to get to your point. That being said, if you find yourself at the microphone and you realize that everything that has been said, you feel you're going to just repeat, it's okay to say, I agree with the previous speakers and give us something new and or different for this committee. So that way we can move forward in a more efficient way. So again, I thank you for your cooperation. My understanding is that there is a formal presentation on item 1. I believe it's going to include items 1 and 2. I'm going to ask if those of you who have this presentation set, come up and speak based on your presentation, but try to keep your portion to 2 minutes.
Do you want to do the zone change item 3 and get it out of the way?
Good point. Thank you, Mr. CLA. That's what we get paid the big bucks. Roberto just advised, and I agree with him, that maybe we can do item 3, so that way you don't have to wait the whole afternoon for item 3. So why don't we hold tight on 1 and 2, and Roberto, read into record item 3?
Sure. Item 3, council members, is a report from the South Valley APC. It's a zone change for a property in CD3.
Okay, now the gentleman who wanted to speak on item 3 was the only person that wanted to speak. I believe it was Oscar and Safi. I'd like to come on up and give us your concern. There are other cards, but he's the only one that wanted to speak. Others wanted to speak as well? All right, so let's do this, because I asked and no one said anything. So, okay, so why don't you sit down, sir, and I'll ask you to come back up again, and let's have the staff give the presentation. He's the applicant.
The representative. The representative for the applicant.
The representative for the applicant, so let's have the staff give us a briefing, and then we'll go from there.
Chairman Reyes, members, I'm Daniel Scott, City Planning Department. This is a zone change from RA to TQRS1. The zone change is consistent with the Low 2 residential land use designation of the Encino-Tarzana Community Plan, and staff recommends that you support the Area Planning Commission for the South Valley. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So it's a zone change, okay. Okay, now Mr. Insafi, you'd like to come on up, you're the applicant.
Chairman Reyes, Terry Kaufman, Mesilla City Attorney's Office. While the applicant's representative is coming up, I did have a comment regarding Q condition A3B, which states that all future lot splits and subdivisions for the subject sites shall be prohibited. And I just want to point out, you can't prevent somebody from filing a discretionary application, so that's not really a valid condition.
Okay, so, but that'll be part of the record now. Okay. Sir, you got 2 minutes.
Good afternoon, council members. This is Oscar Insafi. I represent Mrs. Pilar Alonso, who is the applicant for the project. It's not that we disagree with the approval, but however, those findings actually pretty much, it doesn't give us nothing, which is against the community plan standards. Our request is for RS-1. The findings that the city planning prepared, beside the findings that the city attorney just mentioned, on number 1 of Q, that the Q condition number 1, page 1, it talks about the density. It is minimizing our project to 25% floor area ratio, which I believe there's a map that the city planning they prepared. They took the average of the homes that in the block of address, and those homes, it's not in the same plan. It's not in the same density. I don't think that 25% should apply to our request. It should be, if you are taking average of homes to justify what would be built here, we should actually take the average of the whole block of the R1 or RS zone, which is in the same plan, and then we do that one. This 25% pretty much is for RA zones. So this RS1, which we are requesting, is not to our benefit. Or it's not that to our benefit. It's not within the land use code.
Give me your bottom line.
Well, I'm here to disagree with the condition number 1 that it talks about the 25% maximum floor area ratio. This applies to RA zone, not to R1 or not to RS. And the fact that RS1 is about 40%, city is giving me 25%, and the findings is not, there is no ground for the finding. There is no.
Okay, so we went from a consent item to a item that needs discussion, and I understand your point of view. Let me ask the staff to come on up and respond, then I'll go on with other public comment cards.
Daniel Scott, City Planning. Staff supports the inclusion of that provision, Councilman. And I agree with the city attorney that Q condition 3B be deleted.
So are you suggesting are you agreeing with Mr. Insafi, or are you disagreeing?
No, I'm standing by the staff report and the recommendation of the Area Planning Commission.
And you disagree with what's just been stated?
That's correct.
Okay. All right, let me go through the cards. We have Terry Sansier, and then we have David Green, then we have Liz Janeski.
Yes, hi. I'm Terry Saucier. I'm a 20-year resident of Melody Acres, and I happen to be on the board for Melody Acres Association as well. And I'm here to remind the Plum Committee that MANA, our association, and the Tarzana Neighborhood Council both had opposed a zone change for this property that is a gateway into Melody Acres. Now, I understand the zone change was allowed with the idea that there would be conditions applied to this zone change. And so I'm here to remind the Plum Committee and request that if the zoning changes to go through, that these conditions be upheld as written and not be eliminated. And I also happen to have a letter, which I think you may have received from the chairman of the Melody Acres Association, and I'll summarize it briefly and submit his letter. The chairman asked that the Melody Acres is one of the last remaining RA zone areas in the city where large animal keeping and agricultural activities are allowed. Members of MANA are extremely concerned about the proposed zone change at 19307 West Hatteras Street and its impact on Melody Acres. The properties at the corner of Tampa and Hatteras, entrance to Melody Acres, are concerned the changes at this location could be detrimental, precedent-setting, and encourage others to propose zoning changes not in keeping with the character of our neighborhood. There have been a number of attempts in the past. Also, the Encino Tarzana Neighborhood Plan contains several footnotes intended to protect Melody Acres from such changes. We ask that the Plum Committee reject any attempt to change or reduce the proposed conditions and retain the conditions associated with the proposed zone change. They're critical to helping safeguard the integrity and the character of our neighborhood, and we appreciate your attention and support for Melody Acres. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. David Green. Please, and then we'll have Mr. Doug Mensman.
Yes, I'm Dave Green, also from Melody Acres Neighborhood Association. I'm the treasurer. We have originally opposed the change to RS, but apparently the city master plan covered a couple of houses into our district. There are only 8 gateways into Melody Acres, 3 of them off of Tampa, off Corbin, 2 of them off of Tampa. This is one of them, and 3 of them off of Topham. So allowing a change at the entrance by restricting or taking off the restrictions that apply to all of our area would indeed hamper and be negative to the whole overall of that area. So we're saying that if we have to allow the RS based on the master plan, we'll accept that. We're not going to oppose that original change because apparently it was allowed, but we do believe that there's no reason. Those restrictions have always been there. Yes, they're on everybody else in the entire area. There's no reason that the restrictions shouldn't continue that are listed. The restrictions and conditions that you have. So as long as those stay on there, they can have the RS. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker. What's your name and address?
Liz Shineski, 6110 Melvin Avenue, Tarzana. I'm a resident of Melody Acres for 16 years, and I just want to say that I concur with the other Melody Acres speakers. I don't need to repeat the arguments. I'd like to keep our RA designation, a large animal keeping and agricultural status that we have. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And finally, the council representative.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Mr. Weezer, Doug Minson speaking on behalf of Councilman Dennis Zine, wanting to reiterate the support that the recommendation for the T&Q conditions by the South Valley Area Planning Commission, the councilman supports, especially making sure that the low development is preserved on this property. I'm not really entirely sure why the planning department even took an application for a zone change with no proposed project associated with it. I sort of wish that hadn't happened, and this probably wouldn't even be before you today. Also would defer to Madam City Attorney's recommendation if 3A3B is an unenforceable condition, then there's probably no point in putting it in there. As far as I understand, also based on the new RS zone, the lot is actually too small to subdivide currently, though the applicant would have the opportunity to apply for it, at which point action will have to be taken on a future date on that. But we do for sure want to keep A1A, which I think was one of Mr. Asafi's primary concerns, but all of those other conditions that South Valley put on there we want to remain.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Madam Attorney?
Terry Kaufman Macias. The footnote remains. That's the limitation on the lot size. So that's not affected. It's just that what the condition says is you can't come in later and apply for a subdivision. But that's what, you can't prevent someone from applying for a discretionary application. They could apply, and then the standard against which that subdivision application would be measured would be that footnote. So, if it's inconsistent with the footnote, maybe the decision makers can't approve it, but just the prohibiting the application is not appropriate.
Okay. Okay, so we've heard both sides of the issue, and from the office, so your recommendation from the council office?
I apologize, sir. Yeah, Doug Minsman again on behalf of Councilman Zine. Yes, the council office does support the zone change, but the original application was to go from an RA to an R1. The South Valley Area Planning Commission backed that down to a more appropriate zone for the area being the RS, because this is a rural agricultural subdivision area, though. That zone change is in keeping with the character of the rest of the neighborhood, provided that the additional conditions, T and Qs, that South Valley put on there are kept with this application. That we think would be appropriate in keeping with how the neighborhood, the character of the neighborhood currently.
Okay. And Madam Attorney, given the testimony of the applicant, what the commission has done and what's being recommended by the council office, we would be within our right to move in that direction?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so I would move that we follow the recommendation of the staff and the council office.
Yes, I'd like to move this as well, but I do want an explanation from the planning department how this came about. If the council office from the area has some questions about how this came about, if there's no project proposed, but I assume, so it could have come a number of ways. Just curious to see how it came about.
Daniel Scott, City Planning. Usually we like to have proposed projects along with zone changes or general plan amendments. I do not know how this was accepted at the public counter without an associated project associated with this zone change.
So if a property owner comes up to the counter and wants to do a zone change with no project, but perhaps a future project, those are discouraged?
It's highly discouraged. We like to process discretionary actions with proposed projects, whether it's a general plan amendment or a zone change or both.
But it's discouraged, but we're not violating any rules, right? The counter did not violate any rules that we have?
No.
It's just bad?
That's
timing.
correct.
Okay, thanks. Thank you.
Okay, so that'll be the action of this committee.
And we'll be deleting Q3B per the city attorney.
If that's your motion.
Pardon me, one more time?
We will be deleting condition Q3B.
Yes, if that's the recommendation, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So that'll be the action of this committee. Okay, that takes to number 3. So let's jump to items 1 and 2.
Okay.
Now, do we have a staff report for this?
No, Councilman.
Okay.
But there is a staff member from the planning department here who can speak to the issue.
I'd like to approach this way because we have quite a few cards on this. One is just to hear from the staff, a quick summary of what's in front of us. Then I'll ask the council member to give introductory remarks on this particular matters, items 1 and 2. And then once he's done, I'd like to move to public comment. I'll start with the opposition. There's fewer opposing. And then the support, I know there's a formal presentation, but I'll be calling the cards based on the role and listing of that presentation. It'll be like a presentation, but confined to 2 minutes. Then I'll go through the rest of the cards, and then we'll go to general comment. So it just gives a brief overview, then I'll ask the council member who originated the motion to speak to the item, and then we'll go from there. Please.
Good afternoon, Chairman Reyes and member of the committee. The clean up, green up strategy that you have looked at some time ago to the planning department appears a multidisciplinary strategy to address some long-term land use, incompatible land use and environmental issues, particularly in some of the neighborhoods that have already been cited, such as Bocaima, Boyle Heights, and Wilmington area. We do understand that there are some incompatible land use issues and environmental issues, particularly associated with brownfields in those areas. So with that, we like to come back, if possible, with the report to you that literally looks at the requirements, the responsibilities of each department, and the budget issues that could involve in a project like this, and make sure that all other departments are involved, and come back to you possibly in about 60 to 90 days with that kind of report, and make sure that we address some of the key issues, particularly in terms of the budget, because this project could demand a significant capacity, not only from the plan department, but from other concerned departments.
Okay.
I do understand that the EPA expressed some appreciation and interest in this project some time ago when the first motion was introduced. As a matter of fact, an LA Times article had quoted the Secretary of EPA, who said on the record that this is the most innovative step that the city of Los Angeles has taken on this issue. So in the report, we like to go further and see what that secretary's intent was and appreciation of our work, and come back with a report to you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I want to thank the Planning Department for their brief introduction of this item, and I want to thank mostly the community members who have brought this to the attention of the city. And as was mentioned, this is a creative and innovative way to address environmental concerns in some of our most severely impacted areas. What I like about this, when this was first presented to me, is that it is addressing environmental justice issues up front, rather than waiting after the pollution, after the contamination, then trying to fight those. This is an upfront way of working collaboratively with the industry to protect jobs, to provide those businesses to continue to exist. It's not about shutting businesses down. It's not about putting in more burdensome regulations. It's doing the opposite. It's saying we're going to work within the codes that we have and perhaps rewrite them. Some of them need to be updated in these areas that would provide a better atmosphere for us to improve the air quality, improve the contamination that exists. So as opposed to being a confrontational approach, it's a collaborative one, and I think that is a very good approach. In Boyle Heights, for example, we've had fights with local industry like the Vernon Power Plant. There was a rock crushing company that didn't want to shut down, and we fought that, and we had to take the company all the way to criminal courts. That's as bad as it got. But as opposed to having these types of confrontations, I think there's a better way which this initiative proposes. I will allow, I think the speakers would do a much better job than I could in terms of explaining what this is. But I do want to say that one of the issues we often face when we want to do something differently in the city is funding. There has been about $100,000 raised to help this initiative move along, to help the city in its financial means to move this forward. That's item number 2. But I do ask that as we move forward, that we look at ways to continue to do the administrative support for this, because this is going to, the small costs up front for the city in terms of administrative costs is nothing compared to the benefits it's going to provide to the city and to these 3 communities. These tremendous payouts should these pilot projects work. Secondly, I do ask that, and I think planners are some of the most creative people we work with, right? Lawyers tend to just look at the law and say, that's what it is, do this or do that. And I could say that because I'm both a lawyer and I studied planning. But, and I was just kidding to our city attorney. She's she smiled for the record. But I do want to say this, that if we could look at this and be creative about it, be open-minded about it, and how we approach this. It's a new way of thinking for us, but as was mentioned, people throughout the country are looking at this. And we, as a city, have led the way in environmental issues in many aspects. We have one of the highest recycling rates for residential trash. We try to do that for commercial now. We are in the lead in terms of going to green energy at DWP. This is another way I think the city can be at the forefront of being creative on planning issues that helps those communities that have been impacted most. And sometimes, we say it just can't be done. You know, we either did no planning or bad planning in the past, and it can't be corrected now. The fact that, you know, car body shop is in the middle of residential areas and it's polluting all these things, that's just the way it is, and we got to live with it now. No, we just should not just live with it now. There's things we can do to address those issues, and I think this is a great way to move forward. So I'm asking the planning department to be as open-minded with this, and secondly, to work with the initial seed money that the advocates brought forward to us. I think it'll go a long way. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. And thank you, sir.
Just one last item I'd like to highlight in light of the council's issue. We have a couple of programs that we can also probably utilize in addition to the $100,000 money that's in place. We just embarked a program to add a general health and wellness chapter into the general plan framework, and some issues, especially policy-related issues that pertain to the clean up, green up policies, can be also inducted and housed in that document that we are working. So in the report, we'll probably come back and tell you what goes where as much as we can.
So you had music going with your presentation there. Okay, so thank you, sir. So we'll go with the opposition, and we'll start with Elizabeth Warren, then Dan Hoffman, then Jessica Duboff, I believe, and then Patrick Wilson. And you're welcome to come up to the microphone and form a line, that way we can keep it moving. That's Elizabeth Warren, Dan Hoffman, Jessica Duboff, and Patrick Wilson. Hi there.
Good afternoon, Chairman Reyes, Councilman Rizar. Thank you so much for the opportunity again today. My name is Elizabeth Warren. I'm the Executive Director of Future Ports, and I am a constituent of the 15th Council District. Our office is located as a resident, but our office is located at the Port of Los Angeles at berth 77, P7A in San Pedro. We advocate for balance between environmental and economic issues, and we embrace the philosophy that the supply chain companies serving the ports must grow and grow cleanly. But with that said, and we're also an advocacy organization, and we represent a broad range of members of the goods movement industry that operate throughout Southern California, and many of them are located within the proposed pilot districts. We live, work, and play in these neighborhoods, and as much as any other member of the community, and we have a vested interest in clean and economically viable and sustainable supply chain. With that said, we have serious concerns regarding this initiative, starting with the fact that we have not been actively involved in the creation of this. So we'd like to participate in these discussions a little bit more. Regarding the funding, we'd like to know how that funding for future is going to be generated. Is that going to be from fees from business, or how is that going to actually occur? We want to remind the Council that the business climate in California is ranked among the lowest in the country, and especially those impacts to small businesses and manufacturing will certainly drive more jobs out of Los Angeles and also out of the state of California entirely. So we are concerned about those additional costs. Regarding oversight, we have concerns about duplication of efforts. We are concerned that this initiative may not offer credit to existing regulations and controls. There are already several agencies in place to provide oversight, such as the the SC, AQMD, and the Department of Toxic Substances Control.
Thank you very much. One question, and
yes, sir.
Not to get too personal, but I'm just curious. You work in the ports, but where do you live?
I live over on Hamilton Avenue in the 90731. Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
Thank you.
our office is just where we have rent space at Ports of Call.
You can walk to work.
Almost.
Okay, great.
Almost.
All right.
Thank you.
And just another housekeeping point. If you look at your cell phones, can you make sure that either they're off or you have them on rumble or vibrate? Because otherwise we have to play the same music. So, all right, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, council members, my name is Dan Hoffman. I'm the Executive Director for the Wilmington Chamber of Commerce. I do have some letters for you here, and it's ever so brief. And And on May 10th of this month, 2012, we approved a motion that opposes the CUGU, the Clean Up, Green Up motion to move forward for several reasons. One, we think first it needs to answer the question, where's the funding sources? Where's the money going to come from? Number two, we think the goals are not clear and should be clear and laid out, transparent. And then number three, we think there ought to be strategies. How are we going to achieve these goals? And we think it's only fair that this comes forward to you before you actually consider moving a motion forward or any funding whatsoever. On a personal note, I had one of the first presentations that were made was last year, and the representatives there didn't seem to be aware of what's happened in our community. This past year in Wilmington, I can't speak for Boyle Heights or Pacoima, but I can speak, at least to my knowledge of Wilmington, and for myself. We just had a new 30-acre park, the Wilmington waterfront park, that was dedicated and almost doubled our park space. We also got a report from 2005 and 2010 about how much our air quality improved, and it's available to everyone, here on the Port of Los Angeles website. And in that report, and I didn't take all of them, but in 2005 to 2010, our DPMs went down by 69%. Our NOx, that's diesel particulate matters. And please don't, some of this other stuff I may need help to translate. But you'll hear it pretty regularly. NOx went down 50%, and SOx went down 75%.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, more good things to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker, Jessica Zuboff.
Good afternoon. My name is Jessica Duboff. I'm here on behalf of the Los Angeles Area Chamber of Commerce and our 1,600 member organizations. We've had an initial presentation on the Clean Up, Clean Up program and are looking forward to a more extensive briefing for our membership with updated information as the initiative evolves. The goals of the Clean Up, Green Up program are admirable, and we appreciate the outreach, though we wish we'd been involved from the outset. Successful business incentive zones require a dedicated source of funding. The city is currently in a fiscal crisis, making tough choices and eliminating positions. Without a strong incentive component, this program becomes a duplicative set of regulations for businesses that are trying to grow through further investment in our city. It is also unclear if the city has the expertise and staff resources to commit to this program or the authority to implement some of the aspects. Los Angeles businesses are already heavily regulated by the South Coast Air Quality Management District and the California Air Resources Board. Additionally, the Port of Los Angeles has spent years implementing their own Clean Air Action Plan that has proven to be highly effective in Wilmington. We are concerned that this program would add another layer of bureaucracy for businesses at a time when we are working with the city on a concerted effort to attract companies to our city. There are currently discussions on reducing the business tax in order to level the playing field with neighboring municipalities. Increasing the regulatory burden on businesses wishing to locate or expand within the city seems detrimental to that effort. Some of the elements to this program would be truly useful to businesses: access to loans and grants to underwrite improvements, assistance with navigating the city, state, and federal environmental codes, and identifying incentive programs. The LA Chamber urges the Council to work very closely with businesses and the communities impacted to ensure this initiative is vetted in a transparent manner and contains economically sound practices and policies that do not hinder growth and job creation in our city. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Patrick Wilson.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the City Council. My name is Patrick Wilson. I am president of the Wilmington Chamber of Commerce and also a member of the Wilmington Neighborhood Council, but I'm speaking on behalf of myself, business owner of a company called Fast Lane Transportation in Wilmington, and in the last 30 years we've created over 100 jobs in the community. And I wanted to support the request from the planning representative to extend the discussion on this, or at least the position taken, for 60 to 90 days. I think that's a good recommendation. And I wanted to talk somewhat about the fact that, as everybody, I support cleaning up the environment. There's no question about that. The way it's done, I think the process is what needs to be clarified and further deliberated. And at our neighborhood council meeting last month, as a matter of fact, we had numerous speakers stand up and complain about the existing conditions in Wilmington, and I certainly understand that. I respect that. However, I think they misunderstood the intent of this plan, which is to affect new businesses or business expansion, and complaining about the existing conditions is really not going to help the situation clean up if this only applies to new businesses. And as a matter of fact, I spoke to one of the business owners who submitted a letter to your committee, and he was in support of the plan. Unfortunately, it was somewhat cynical because he supported the plan because he admitted that it would give him a competitive advantage because it would not apply to him, only new businesses. So I think that approach needs to be looked at a little bit more carefully and equitably. So trying to put the hopes of cleaning the environment on not existing businesses or businesses that are yet to expand, I think, might backfire. It might create actually the opposite effect of what's intended. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. So that concludes the opposition, and now we'll move towards the Clean Up, Green Up Trust Fund motions. And what I've done is I've gone through the speaker cards and I've ordered them in the same lineup as your presentation. So that way it'll flow with what was previously programmed. So we will begin with Neri Martinez. I'd like to come out and give us name and address, and welcome.
Thank you very much.
Just to be clear, this is item 2 now?
Yes. 2 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, items 1 and 2 together.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Please.
Do you ask for my name and my address?
Yes.
Neri Martinez from Pacoima Beautiful. Address is 11243 Glen Oaks Boulevard, Suite 1, Pacoima, 91331.
If you just read into the microphone, we'll hear you better.
Do you want me to repeat that? Or
No, go ahead.
Don't start my tip again.
Okay. Let's give her.
Am I ready? Okay.
Let's give her 2 minutes. There you go.
Thank you. My name is Neri Martinez. I'm Executive Director of Pacoima Beautiful, one of 4 community-based organizations leading the Clean Up, Green Up policy campaign. Today you're going to hear briefly from supporters that are supporting this measure. The proposed Clean Up, Green Up policy addresses the overconcentration of pollutant uses next to homes, schools, health facilities, and parks. Our policy solution has been endorsed by more than 200 community organizations and businesses, many of them who are represented here today. Can you please stand, those of you who are supporting our proposal? The Clean Up, Green Up proposal combines familiar planning tools with economic incentives to help businesses clean up their operation. Collaboration is a central tenet among residents, agencies, and businesses. Our proposal is designed as a pilot measure to be tested out in 3 communities where we've been working for years to address toxic hotspots in Pacoima, Boyle Heights, and Wilmington. The pilot approach will help us work and help us fix before we expand our model any further. We understand the serious budgetary issues facing the city and the planning department in particular. We know that it would take more than $100,000 in private funding that we have raised to help the department develop recommendations for implementing the proposed policy. We respectfully ask that the Plum Committee prioritize the Clean Up, Green Up in the budget consideration going forward, since the proposed policy stands not only on its own merits, but the promise of advancing elements of the department's overall priorities, including the health and wellness element and the community plan updates. The community groups leading the Clean Up, Green Up campaign and our partners are here for the long term to see this policy through. We want to thank Councilmember Jose Huizar and his staff for their leadership on the policy proposal, as well as our co-sponsors, former Councilwoman Janice Hahn, Councilmembers Cardenas and Alarcon. Our next speakers are Drs. Manuel Pastor from USC's Program for Environmental and Regional Equity and Jim Stott from Occidental College. And we also want to present to you our supporter cards, if I might. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Jim Sad. I'm a professor of environmental science at Occidental College. Los Angeles has a critical air quality problem from pollution emissions sourced both from transportation and also from stationary sources such as industrial facilities, warehousing, manufacturing, and oil refineries. The damaging health and social impacts of living and breathing this air pollution are well established, and many landmark scientific studies, such as those documenting the association of asthma and reduced lung function in children, and also preterm birth and low birth weight in infants, were conducted right here in the Los Angeles metropolitan area. As bad as this problem is for Los Angeles as a city, it is much worse in some neighborhoods where air pollution sources are concentrated together and where the social and health conditions make residents more vulnerable to the damaging effects of air pollution. In communities like Boyle Heights, Wilmington, and Pacoima, schools, child care centers, and homes are located close to clusters of polluting facilities. They also suffer more acutely because of the effects of poverty, poor nutrition, and chronic health problems that are so common among the people living there. This problem of cumulative impacts is real. It's being acknowledged by California EPA and the U.S. EPA, as well as many other regional regulatory agencies. What does the science tell us about cumulative impacts? First, it's clear that the disparity in exposures to air pollution in different communities are significant and linked to adverse health risks. And second, social inequality amplifies the negative health impacts of air pollution. Over the past 15 years, I've worked with my colleagues, Dr. Manuel Pastor from the USC Program for Environmental and Regional Equity, from whom you'll hear shortly, and Dr. Rachel Morello-Frosch, an epidemiologist and public health specialist at the UC Berkeley School of Public Health, to analyze and document these disparities in health risk and pollution exposure in Los Angeles. The pattern is clear, and it remains significant in the context of a multivariate statistical analysis, and the results have been published in top-tier academic journals.
Thank you, Dr. Sadden. It's good to see a tag team between Occidental and USC on this one. That's great. Thank you very much. And we have with us Dr. Manuel Pastor, and I just want to share with everyone here that Dr. Pastor was very active and responsive before and during the riots back in the early 90s. And I thank you, sir, for your service to the city. I have great contributions, and good to see you again.
Thank you. Good to see you as well. I was asked to take a second of my time to do a special shout-out to Wilmington, because I hear that many of the Wilmington residents need to leave in just a little while, so thanks for being here.
Thank you, Wilmington.
So as Dr. Sad indicated, we've spent our life documenting disparities in health issues in Los Angeles, including looking at the impacts of disproportionate exposures on how school kids do in school. And so recently we've decided that maybe we need to finally address this problem rather than just document it. And that problem is that we tend to regulate facility by facility rather than on a neighborhood basis. We tend to regulate by single impacts rather than cumulative impacts. And this approach, the green zone approach, is an attempt to really create a new pioneering paradigm in terms of how we do regulatory approaches. It involves three elements: screening, cleaning, and greening. Screening is using things like the environmental justice screening method that we developed for the California Resources Board to figure out which communities are over-impacted and socially vulnerable, and to screen out new toxic uses. Cleaning means taking some of the existing businesses and providing a kind of technical assistance and financial support that allows many who are willing to clean up, and making sure that enforcement takes place at a neighborhood level as well. And greening means connecting trying to convert uses as possible to new green uses and attracting new green employers. So we've spent 15 years at this work. In fact, our first study on environmental justice in Southern California prompted the LA City Council to create the Environmental Justice Task Force back in the late 1990s. This effort before you builds on expertise and research. It focuses on the appropriate neighborhoods. It's modest in scale. It brings finance to the table. It has business support and from the actual communities and from the Los Angeles Business Council, and it takes seriously the need to promote economic as well as environmental health. So we're hoping very much that you move this forward and join the U.S. EPA and others in taking a new approach to protecting our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pastor. Next speaker is Mr. Don Spivak. Good to see you, sir.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Councilman. My name is Donald Spivak, 600 West 9th Street, downtown Los Angeles. I've been working on, as a consultant with the Clean Up Green Up campaign to develop the policy that is being discussed today. Clean Up, Green Up is a community-initiated proposed policy to do three things. First, reduce pollution in 3 pilot communities, Pacoima, Boyle Heights, and Wilmington. These areas, as you've just heard, have a documented history of pollution effects on health of residents and workers, and community members there organize themselves to address the problem. Second, prevent the expansion of pollution by establishing clearer standards for new and expanded businesses in these 3 communities. As mentioned, the proposed policy does not retroactively affect existing business. Third, provide economic development assistance to attract new, greener businesses and assist existing businesses to clean and green their operations as they expand. We propose to do this by creating what we call green zones or overlay districts in these communities. The green zones will offer simplified, more streamlined regulations, including elimination of code conflicts, more certainty for developers and business operators on the requirements a business is expected to meet, and a more level playing field among currently regulated and non-regulated businesses. In the short term, reduction of pollution is brought about by expanded and enhanced inspection and enforcement. Prevention is brought about through recommended new performance standards that would include such issues as distance between industrial operations and homes and schools, rules regarding noise, parking, loading, and materials handling and storage. Economic development strategies include targeting the array of city, state, and federal incentives such as loans and grants to support the purchase of new, cleaner, and more efficient production equipment, along with capital improvements to both the industrial districts and the communities in which they are situated. A key component of the proposed program is an ombudsman person function to do business outreach and assist businesses with locating, applying, and qualifying for assistance program, to ideally coordinate the efforts between the city and other environmental entities to identify and eliminate code conflicts. It's our expectation the green zones will not only benefit these 3 communities, but provide an opportunity to test out processes and standards which the city could then consider applying in other areas. Thank you.
And Mr. Spivak, I don't want to miss this opportunity to say thank you for your work. Mr. Spivak has been an extraordinary contributor to the City of LA, to the Community Development Agency for several years. I won't say how many, but very talented and very giving of your skill sets in making this happen. So thank you, Mr. Spivak.
Thank you.
Ms. Jane Warner.
Good afternoon, Chairman Reyes. I am Jane Warner, the President and CEO of the American Lung Association in California. While my legal residence is Palm Springs, I'm very happy to be here today. But I do represent the entire state of California, and I don't want to repeat what my gracious colleagues have shared with you, but the American Lung Association released our State of the Air report just last year, and as we know, air pollution is very, very bad in Los Angeles area. Over 90% of us breathe bad air. It's particularly harmful to infants, people with lung disease, people with cardiovascular disease, and diabetes. It's important to note that there are 19,000 annual premature deaths. There are 280,000 cases of asthma symptoms, 1.9 million annual lost work days, and more than 1 million respiratory-related school illnesses. This is an important issue, and the American Lung Association in California strongly supports and enthusiastically supports this measure. Thank you.
Ms. Warner, before you leave, I need to do this because these are extraordinary folks. Ms. Warner also, I work with Diabetes Association, and so your focus for our children and our communities is for many years, and for being involved now in this capacity, it's really good to see you in this part of this team. So congratulations.
Well, thank you very much. There's certainly a link between air pollution and diabetes as well. Thank you, Chairman.
Mario Rosales.
Hola, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Mario Rosales. Soy residente de Pacoima y miembro de Pacoima Beautiful.
Buenas tardes.
La razón de la que estoy aquí hablando con ustedes es para informarles que les pido por favor pasen la póliza de Clean Up, Green Up. En Pacoima se ven muchas fábricas contaminantes y calles en mal estado. Por tanto, camión pesado que transita en ellas.
Hello and good afternoon. My name is Mayra Rosales. I'm a resident of Pacoima and I'm a member of Pacoima Beautiful. The reason why I'm here today is to speak to you and let you know about what I'm about to ask. I need to ask you for a favor to please approve the initiative Clean Up, Green Up. you see a lot of factories that contaminate the air in the city of Pacoima, and the streets are in very bad condition due to the large number of heavy trucks that travel through the streets.
Algunos miembros de mi familia y vecinos tienen asma por tanta contaminación en el aire. Me gusta esta póliza porque traerá trabajos verdes y seguros, tendrá más regulaciones en los trabajos contaminantes. Varios vecinos quieren mejorar el barrio en bien de la comunidad.
Some of my family members and neighbors suffer from asthma due to such high levels of contamination in our environment. I like this initiative because it will bring with it the creation of more jobs, green jobs, and safe jobs, and it would provide more regulations for the jobs that are located in industries that contaminate the environment. A number of the neighbors also want to improve the neighborhood and for the well-being of our community.
Es por eso que estoy haciendo este llamado para pedirles que nos ayuden a pasar esta póliza Clean Up, Green Up, que nos dará un Pacoima más limpio y seguro. Muchas gracias.
This is the reason why I am here eagerly asking you to please approve, to help us approve this initiative of Clean Up, Green Up, because it's going to give Pacoima it's going to make Pacoima a cleaner, greener, and more safe place to be. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Gracias, señor Rosales. Our next speaker is Pastor Alfred Carrill.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
My name is Alfred Carrill, pastor of the Apostolic Faith Center in Wilmington. I've come today before your presence, to come forth with something more personal. I've been a pastor for 30 years. I've been a resident of Wilmington, California for 60 years. During my pastorship, I visit many children in the hospitals. During my pastorship, even the elderly. I have members of my family that have asthma. Our communities, or our community in Wilmington, have suffered very much. We have a sign in the middle of our city, and it says Wilmington, the heart of the harbor. But I would like to add to that, we have lung disease. And to me, this proposal of clean up, green up, is very important to our community. It's a must. Like the scripture says in the book of Isaiah, come and let us reason together. Let us come together to help our community. We need help. In 2010, there was an explosion at Thank you.
No, I need you to finish. Go ahead.
It was an explosion of one of the picture parts. It took 32 hours to put that fire off. And what was that reason? Who was the fire hydrants? Who were all the people breathing those 32 minutes into the air? Wilmington is known as the backyard of the LA City. That's what it's known. The junkyards. That's what it's known. Many times I travel and They asked me, where are you from? And I said, I'm from Wilmington. You know what their response is? Sorry to hear it.
I need you to conclude, sir.
I'm sorry to hear it. And what does that have to do to me? A residence of 60 years in a beautiful city that needs help. I would suggest that the members of the council, if you don't know where Wilmington is, come to Wilmington and I'll show you. I'll give you a tour and show you the spots that need to be improved. Don't just hear it.
Thank you, sir.
Go and see it and hear it. Look for yourself. We are standing here listening to pros and cons and everything else. The best example is you go and see it.
Thank you, Pastor.
And I'll give you a tour. And even more than that, I'll take you for lunch.
Thank you, sir. Michelle Garakian. Michelle Garakian and then Dina Cervantes. Good afternoon.
Hello. Thank you very much for hearing me today. It was a very touching testimony. My name is Michelle Garaki. I'm the Vice President of the Los Angeles Business Council. We are an area business organization that represents more than 350 business leaders from all different industry sectors in Los Angeles. The Clean Up Green Up policy framework proposes combining economic incentives with the traditional planning tools and promoting collaboration between government agencies, residents, businesses as a means to address a problem that has vexed our city for generations: the overconcentration of polluting land uses near homes, schools, parks, and other sensitive uses. The LA Business Council is especially encouraged by the proposals targeting of economic incentives to assist businesses clean up and green up their operations and attract new and green business to the 3 pilot communities of Boyle Heights, Pacoima, and Wilmington. Favorable business tax treatment, business assistance loans, and grants to underwrite improvements, streamline permitting, and elimination of code conflicts would all be important steps to encourage businesses to stay and grow in Los Angeles and to reduce the emissions as they do so. While we support the motion and the development of recommendation on how to implement these 3 pilot overlay districts, we strongly recommend that this program involve the local business community, be carefully designed to provide continuous support to the local businesses, and ensure that the Clean Up Green Up program does not increase their long-term costs. For example, the business community must be actively involved in determining the qualifying conditions for each new zone and what conditional use permits will be developed for each business. The City Council should also make clear that the charge of the Clean Up Green Up proposal is not to drive businesses away from these areas, but rather to work collaboratively to identify technical means and financial support to reduce pollution in these communities. Strong outreach to businesses in these pilot areas is an essential requirement to this program. It is also important that you continue to include business organizations as we move forward in developing the details for this program.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dina Cervantes. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, members. Thank you for your time. My name is Dina Cervantes, and I'm also here on a very personal matter, like Pastor Carrill said. But I'm actually here on behalf of our family's business, Triumph Precision Products in Pacoima. It's a family-run business that has been around since the 50s, but it's been in the Valley, and in particular in Pacoima, for at least 10 years. And it's a business where my father works and my uncles, and it's a family business. My sister and I kind of stepped in a couple years ago to support them because they needed business. They needed a website. They didn't have those just minimal things that they needed to thrive in this in these times. But seeing that and seeing where they were and learning about the Clean Up and Green Up campaign and this policy, as a business, we saw what was available and that this could actually be a win-win. Coming from our parents' business, we saw that they really needed support in navigating some of these policies just the resources that are available for businesses just like my father's. So we're here in support and speaking on behalf of the Clean Up and Green Up campaign. When we spoke to our parents about it, they got it because they share the same values as we do. We live in the community as well. So they realized and they said, well, if Mija, if you can make it happen and if you can, figure it out, so that, their concern was that they wouldn't be penalized. And I said, well, no, we're going to work together so that we can create this, new avenue. So we're here again, like I said, we're speaking on behalf of businesses, and, we want to be part of a healthier community as well. And we want to be able to continue to grow our business, so that's why we're here speaking on behalf of the campaign. And just like everybody else here who's committed to their community, we are committed to our family's business and staying in Pacoima. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is Joe Ryan. I believe you are concluding the formal presentation.
I think I'm here to wrap up.
Okay.
Thank you. My name is Joe Liu. I'm the President and CEO of the Coalition for Clean Air. I'm also the Governor's appointee to the South Coast Air Quality Management District Governing Board. I'm here to support the proposal, Clean Up, Green Up proposal. It's taken me 22 years to get here. I've one major step closer to addressing these economic and environmental justice problems in our most polluted communities. I spent 17 years as an environmental justice advocate, the last 5 years as both an advocate and a decision maker. I've served on countless committees, advisory groups, work groups. I've drafted recommendations, celebrated even the smallest little political victories on policy, and worked with regulators, stakeholders, scientists, and elected officials. I've read more laws, regulatory proposals, policy proposals than anyone in their right mind would care to admit to. And today I'm here to witness an important step forward in this multi-year journey. Our entire Los Angeles region has the worst air quality in the nation, but some places have it worse than others. And Clean Up, Green Up targets 3 of our most polluted communities, and using this pilot project approach, we'll develop solutions for our regional problems as well. As an AQMD governing board member, I know the challenges this issue presents in terms of public health, quality of life, and our fundamental right to breathe clean air. At AQMD, we adopted a Clean Communities Plan, and it was a new approach to address this issue of air toxics. We've initiated pilot projects in Boyle Heights and the city of San Bernardino in order to address the cumulative impacts problem when it comes to air pollution. And Clean Up, Green Up complements our program and actually goes beyond it in many ways. So you have before you a reasonable and thoughtful way to get at this problem of cumulative environmental impacts while supporting job growth and our economy. We have today brought before you a diverse group of supporters, including representatives from business, labor, public health, academia, local residents. So I just ask you, and I think we all ask you, to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Joe Liu, thank you very much, Joe. We do have several more cards, but my understanding is I can read your cards to the record. This was the formal presentation, but we do have with us Glenn Dake, Jane Paul, Angelo Logan, Greg Good, Adrian Martinez, Ala Yanis, Michael Long, and Osvaldo Robles. We'd like to all stand and just recognize you for being here and thank you for your support. Okay, now we're going to general comments, and then that should be the end of the public comment period. We have with us Brendan Huffman, general comment. Brendan Huffman, you still here? Cecilia Moreno, general comment, and Laura Espinosa for general comment. Come on up. Cecilia Moreno and Laura Espinosa. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, council members. Brendan Huffman with the South Bay Association of Chambers of Commerce. We're 16 chambers located between the Port of LA and LAX. I am here in the spirit of cooperation, in the spirit of achieving cleaner air for our community as well as creating jobs. And I want to point out some constructive criticism to help you move forward and hopefully get to yes from the business community as well as the environmental justice community both of whom have important goals: job creation, better public health, cleaner air. So I want to go back to Councilmember Huizar, whose tone I thought was very constructive. During some of the presentations to the business groups, we didn't always hear that tone, and let me point out a few. Buffer zones between industry and residential communities. We don't know what that means. Usually that means eminent domain. We heard terms like parks and open space. We don't know where that funding is going to come from. Does that come from penalties on existing or new businesses? Permit expediting. We're concerned about a hiring freeze, perhaps false promises. Remember, we've had layoffs with the permitting office at Building and Safety and others. And of a whole host of other terms that were used in these presentations that are very uncomfortable with the business community. Our door is open. I hope our phone rings so that we can be included, engaged in a meaningful way to address these important issues. And lastly, I think everyone in the city appreciates the public health concern and the goals you're trying to achieve. What might be missing from this discussion is someone from UCLA's Anderson School or USC's Marshall School to talk about unintended consequences when we're talking about job creation and bringing green businesses to our city. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Cecilia Moreno.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Cecilia Moreno. I live at 1234 Lackney Avenue, and I'm here in representation of the Wilmington Neighborhood Council. I'm proud to always say that we are the first certified neighborhood council in the entire city, and we have been going strong for 11 years. And what our neighborhood council is asking the committee to consider is that, unfortunately for us, we weren't in the loop. In the discussion. I understand from speaking with the coalition that many years of hard work has gone into developing where we are today, and we respect that. Our position is, you came to us literally, we heard the presentation on April the 25th for the first time. There's one neighborhood council in all of Wilmington, and we heard it for the first time on April 25th. And that's why in February we submitted the impact statement saying, give us more time. So I was actually pleased to hear the planning department ask for some time for them to do their report and review, because that will allow us an opportunity to also do the same thing. That's all we're asking. We're not saying we're against it. I actually love the comments that the gentleman before me said. I think the Wilmington Chamber, the position they're taking is that we didn't have an opportunity to really be engaged. You came and spoke to us once. You've been working on this for 3-4 years, and you're just coming to our community. If you look at the list of supporters, you'll see that the Harbor Alliance of Neighborhood Councils is on board, but when you look at that, Wilmington's not a part of that. The San Pedro Neighborhood Councils are on board. That's not Wilmington. Harbor City's neighborhood councils are on board. That's not Wilmington. I respect them, I do, and I respect the efforts, but all we're saying is you have one neighborhood council in our town. We represent, the way we're set up is you've got businesses with education, with nonprofits, with residents, with industry, sitting on the table. We meet every month. We have for 11 years, going strong, and we just weren't engaged. And so what we're asking is just some time to give us that opportunity as well.
Ms. Moreno, if I may, in meeting with Councilmember Buscaino, I know he's a very grassroots-oriented person. His origin and his approach to community issues is very neighborhood-based. It speaks of his career. And I'm sure that with the time allotted, because this is 3 distinct areas within the LA City area, that we're going to have this flexibility to make sure we're being inclusive. And I'm just being aware of Mr. Buscaino, Councilman Buscaino's approach. I'm sure he's going to accommodate those who want to be part of this process.
And we trust that as well, because that was one of the first things we said to him. It's like, give us a chance. I understand that the councilwoman signed on. My frustration, to be honest with you, and I've been very blunt to her former staff, was you guys knew this was coming. Why didn't you say, go back and talk to Wilmington about it as well? When they were getting ready for that motion to come, why weren't we engaged? That's all we were asking, and we just didn't hear that. So, yes, Councilman Buscaino has said the same thing. Give this community an opportunity to vet it and talk about it. You know, we have a lot of folks from Wilmington here today. Some of them are my neighbors. I'm happy to see that. I hope that they continue to be engaged and that they attend our neighborhood council. We have one in Wilmington, one a month.
Okay.
We invite them all.
But be rest assured that
Thank you.
working with Councilman Rizar, this will not leave committee until there is a comfort margin as to the preparation for this effort. So
I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Much. Laura Espinosa.
Interpretación.
Para traducir. Okay. Un momento, por favor. Okay.
Mi nombre es Laura Espinosa, vengo de la comunidad de la ciudad de Wilmington.
Buenas tardes.
My name is Laura Espinosa. I'm here on behalf of the community of Wilmington.
Pues espero que oigan mi opinión a todos ustedes, ya que todos tenemos algo más que hacer en nuestros hogares.
I do sincerely hope that you listen to my suggestions and opinion, since we all have other things to do in our homes, but we're here to share our suggestions.
Y yo soy también católica, apostólica, romana y voluntaria en mi iglesia.
I'm also Catholic, Apostolic, and Roman, and I'm also a volunteer at my church.
Yo no estoy a favor ni en contra de la propuesta, pero quiero dar mi opinión en sí como la realidad que yo camino todos los días en mi comunidad.
I'm not in favor or against this proposal, but I would like to give my opinion from first hand, since I'm one that walks to and all around my community.
Cuando presentaron aquí de la universidad, me hubiera de gustar que vieran ir a dar una educación a nuestros padres de esa área.
When the professors from the universities made the presentation, I really would like them to give a similar presentation to residents in our community.
Como voluntarios, ya que nos hace falta que nos capaciten y nos eduquen como somos mayoría hispanos.
To the residents of the community who are volunteers, because we need to be educated and get better informed, since we are the majority as a Hispanic group.
Ya que nuestros niños también necesitan eso en las escuelas. Yo estoy voluntario en la escuela Frisadino. Ahora hubo un meeting donde se va a preparar la nueva escuela Harvard Reading.
Our children also need this type of information in the schools. I'm a volunteer at Fries and another school, Harvard. It's a new school.
Yo quisiera que todos estos padres también se involucraran allí, ya que a veces regresamos a nuestras comunidades.
I also would like a lot of the parents to get involved in these projects, because sometimes when we go back to our own communities,
y se nos olvida todo lo que oímos aquí.
We often forget everything we hear here.
Mucha gente me conoce en esa comunidad y también mi esposo me dice, ya siéntate.
A lot of people know me in that community. Even my husband tells me it's enough.
Pero si no yo hago la diferencia, ¿qué legado le voy a dejar a mis hijos?
But if I don't work to make the difference, what legacy will I leave behind to my children?
Gracias, señor Espinosa.
La violencia está pasando en Wilmington y qué valores les estamos inculcando.
Gracias.
There's a lot of violence that's happening in Wilmington, and what values are we instilling in them?
Muchas gracias.
Pero yo pienso que si ya hay muchas organizaciones del ambiente, lo que es federal, estatal y local, pienso que esta organización o los voluntarios de esta organización se deben de unir a ellos.
I believe, since there are already a lot of environmental organizations at the local, state, and federal levels, then I feel that those organizations and this one should unite, get together to work on the same projects.
Señora, quiero decir gracias por la contribución, todo lo que ha demostrado, el esfuerzo. Queremos seguir con la Junta. Ojalá que pueda llegar más personas del grupo Madres de Wilmington, y así entre todos que están aquí puedan avanzar a todo lo que se quiere realizar. Con eso, muchas gracias, señora.
Muchas gracias y espero que en mi comunidad lleguemos a poner nuestro granito de arena a limpiar afuera de nuestras calles y nuestras casas y escuelas. Gracias.
Gracias, señora. Gracias. Okay, so that concludes all the public comment. That concludes the public comment card. Councilor?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I want to thank everybody who came out to testify on this innovative policy. I also want to thank the people who spoke out in opposition and people who had general comments, because this is not done. We are, I think, a lot of work has been done already to come up with a general framework, but that still has to be put through the prism of the planning department and within the framework of what our existing rules and regulations and how the city functions. So we will that's what we hope to do within the 60 days that have been asked by the planning department, so that they take a look at this, they see the proposal that's come from the community, and work within the framework of the city planning department and other departments that can make this possible. So any other questions, comments, concerns, please do direct them to our planning department, to any one of our council offices, whether it's Councilman Buscaino, Reyes as the chair of the Plum Committee, myself, or Alarcon and Cardenas, it's Alarcon in Pacoima. Please let us know, because this is far from being done. But like I said earlier, I do think and I hope that we move this forward and prioritize it. The benefits are tremendous. And with that, Mr. Chair, I would ask, and with your indulgence, if we could ask the planning department to report back in 60 days to recommend a work plan that would develop and implement the cleanup, green-up strategies in the 3 pilot communities of Boyle Heights, Pacoima, and Wilmington. The work plan should outline scope and tasks, schedule, personnel, and resource requirements, and any necessary budget analysis. It should also specify how the cleanup, green-up work plan fits within existing department priorities and leverages existing efforts. As part of the budget analysis, the planning department should consider that $100,000 may be available in a trust fund, as outlined in item number 2 in today's committee, pending action on that parallel motion that has been introduced. And I'd like to make that motion, Mr. Chair.
My understanding is that it's a comprehensive approach, and just to make sure that I'm clear, you want to include the departments of Public Works, Community Development Department, Fire Department, Building and Safety, Office of Finance, and in consultation with City Attorney, so that they can, and project consultants report back in 60 days. Is that?
Yes, I include those departments, and the plan department as the lead in this effort.
As the lead, okay. And the policy will include, but not limited to, financial and planning incentives, inspection enforcement protocols, administrative funding mechanisms, and design standards.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we'll look forward to that in 69 days. And then for the item number 2, the trust fund, we would request the city attorney prepare and present the ordinance to create a cleanup and cleanup trust fund within 30 days to Plum. And that'll be item number 2.
Yes.
Madam Attorney?
He wants the city attorney to item 1. This was supposed to be read.
Okay.
I'll take that back to my office.
60 days?
Okay, we'll shoot for 60 days?
60 days, okay.
And going back to item number 1, there's another component. I want to make sure it's all on the record. That we request the CAO to prepare a report to Plum in 60 days in consultation with the planning department that provides a cost estimate to implement the cleanup and green-up strategies, policy recommendations in Boyle Heights, Pacoima, and Wilmington. You okay with that too?
Yes, thank you.
All right, so that covers all the bases. That was items 1 and 2. Again, I want to say congratulations to you all, Councilman Rizar.
Thank you.
And we'll keep working on this.
And my final note to the people who are here is that we're actually making history, because in the environmental justice movement, we usually look to the state or federal rules to address issues of environmental concern in local communities. Here, we're using local tools by a city to address some of these issues. And it is a new approach in many ways, and hopefully this succeeds. And I'm sure that once we have success in these pilot areas, we could go and address other problematic areas throughout the city. Thank you for your support, for being here today.
Okay. Congratulations. Anything else on the agenda?
I don't know.
Comment?
I think there's item 7. I don't know if Mr. Legrand is going to.
Another charge of coffee?
Today, thank you.
Yeah, okay. You got a little spike there.
And public comment.
Anybody here for public comments? Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
I'll bore you with my updates.